knowledge of the universe. Whether there are extraterrestrial civilizations is only one of the very many things that we do not know about our universe. Presumably, some civilization out there already comprehends most, if not all, physical phenomena to a much more sophisticated degree than we do, has been able to elucidate the nature of dark matter and dark energy, counts with a far grander cartographic database of the universe than we do, and knows much more about where in the universe there is life. Some of these civilizations might even understand how to use the topology of space-time to their advantage, a topic that has been thoroughly explored by our imagination and the understanding that the other civilization is capable of. However, it is obvious that humans have not stopped evolving, and there exists the possibility that from us will emerge a more intelligent species, or at least more intelligent humans, 20,000 years from now or 1,000,000 years from now. Prolonging existence. Existential threats vary from local to universal, but no one is completely devoid of them. In fact, the grander in scale and the more beings they affect, the more inevitable they can potentially be. We can eradicate a disease or prevent nuclear holocaust, but we can't prevent a gamma-ray burst from firing straight at us or a supernova from wreaking havoc. Such undertakings seem impossible to us, but even they seem trivial compared to the ultimate extinction event, the universe's eventual transition into a state unsuitable for life. This can happen 97 trillion years from now, when stars cease to fuse, 1,034 years from now, when protons start to decay, 10,100 years from now, when all that remains is photons, or any day now, if we are in a false vacuum state. Presumably, any intelligent form of life would want to prolong its existence indefinitely, whether as it is or in some sort of elevated state. What steps might other civilizations take to ensure their continued existence, then? Not too long ago, when the Big Crunch seemed like the most plausible end of the universe scenario, a physicist named Frank Tipler proposed that the solution would be to create an infinitely powerful computer, which would harness all the energy created by the Big Crunch. With this energy, he argued, the computer could bring back to life all life that ever existed. In the very last second of objective time, the computer could create an infinite amount of subjective time in which it could emulate all possible quantum states of the universe, including every life form that ever existed. The takeaway from this is that, as self-preserving life forms, we meet our awareness of the finitude of the universe with ideas to overcome it and make the existence of life infinite. Appearance. It's not just that we imagine them to be humanoid, it's that we imagine them to appear earthling-like at all, even when we try to diverge most from the typical humanoid appearance that science fiction gives to extraterrestrials. We can't help but envision prolonging existence as sharing a general morphology with Earth's fauna, reptiles, crustaceans, or, at best, insects, only of human size or slightly bigger. The rationale behind this is actually not as faulty as it may seem. If we build our imagined extraterrestrial from the ground up, we make anthropocentric assumptions about their morphology out of necessity. After all, we are the only intelligent species that we know of, and therefore the only instance that we can study of evolution reaching such a state. First, we assume that any intelligent species had to arise from some sort of biochemistry similar to ours. Then the resulting life form had to achieve a multicellular state, so as to develop a dedicated brain. It had to develop a skeleton of sorts to cope with gravity, and its body had to grow up to a minimum size such that its brain developed the level of cognition that we enjoy. It had to grow at least a pair of limbs to move around with and a pair to use tools. It also has to have a set of senses to interact with its world and a body big and strong enough to thrive in its ecosystem. In the end, it's just simpler to not think outside the box. That said, We're basing all of this on the idea that their world is like ours, and that evolution took a very similar set of paths that resulted in similar biodiversity, but they don't have to be the same size we are. For example, for all we know, there could be sapient extraterrestrials the size of a small building or the size of a freight train. They don't have to have a head or limbs resembling what we've seen on this planet. They don't even need to have a skin instead of, say, a cellulose wall or something made of an exotic compound. Even more exciting to contemplate are extraterrestrial life forms that don't share our biochemistry at all. It is theorized, for example, that silicon-based beings would be of a crystalline structure and thrive in high-temperature places, though silicon biochemistry is not as flexible and apt for life as carbon's is. Expectations of us. It is our hope that any contact we make with extraterrestrial beings will have a mutually beneficial outcome: scientific cooperation, space exploration, the sharing of resources, and perhaps even a shared appreciation of some sort of common art. Needless to say, we have also contemplated a variety of negative outcomes involving their use of violence upon us. But just because they don't use violence doesn't mean they can't possibly be subjugating us. We ourselves use plants and animals for our own self-preservation purposes, and while some of us make efforts to improve the way we treat animals, the fact remains that we condition their lives to our will, regardless of whether they are aware of it. Could it be that a more advanced civilization would want to use us in some way, whether we know it or not? Could it be that they, like us, have always expected to be contacted by a superior race, and so they are as unprepared and eager to be baffled as we are? As I suggested above, many scientists are of the opinion that going out of our way to make contact with aliens is not something humanity should do. Our first contact aliens might be as wary of making contact with us as we are of them, and if history serves to indicate anything, they might be completely justified. Where are they? Within our narrow idea of what kind of planets can sustain life and using our verdant technology, we have already discovered a few star systems with 1 or 2 planets that fulfill our criteria. The bad news is that there is a rather long stretch between being able to sustain life and being able to sustain advanced, intelligent civilizations, and there is little reason to believe that one of the rather few habitable planets that we've identified actually harbors intelligent life. The good news is that we've explored such an insignificant corner of the universe for life that the mere fact that there are habitable planets within earshot means the probability of there being life somewhere out there is excitingly high. Again, the bad news is that physical constraints prevent us from getting to such faraway places within any reasonable time frame. Faster-than-light travel is not as yet understood to be possible, unless we are able to meddle with the very fabric of space-time. Even then, if the Big Rip hypothesis turns out to be true, every second that passes makes intergalactic travel more and more implausible. But supposing we are one day able to distort space-time to travel to faraway places, where should we look? It's not just planets at a certain distance from their stars that we should look for: the size of the star, its luminosity, its dark spots, the way the planet revolves around the star, the atmospheric components of the planet's rotation and tilt, the size and distance of other planets orbiting around the same star, and even the shape and activity of the galaxy are all important factors to consider. Regardless, we're not flying out in search of aliens anytime soon. If we are to see them in our lifetimes, it's probably because they will come to us, not the other way around, but I don't think we'll see that very soon, either. Regardless, extraterrestrial life is a captivating subject, and I do hope that one day humans will greet creatures of another planet and establish a mutually beneficial relationship. The end of a life-sustaining universe is not an encouraging scenario to contemplate, so it would be nice to know we're not the only ones concerned with preserving life forever.